The miracle of the floating axe head. The vision. The school of the prophets was flourishing. Under the guidance of Elisha, more and more young men were seeking the wisdom of the Lord. But with growth came a humble problem. Their dwelling place had become far too small. One afternoon, the young men gathered around the prophet. One of them spoke up, his voice filled with hope. "Look," he said, "the place where we meet with you is too cramped for us. Please, let us go to the Jordan River. Each of us can take a log from there, and we will build a place for us to live." Elisha looked at their eager faces and nodded slowly. "Go," he replied simply. But the men didn't want to go alone. "Please," one pleaded, "won't you come with your servants?" And Elisha, in his kindness, answered, "I will go." The labor at the Jordan. The journey to the Jordan was filled with purposeful conversation. When they arrived, the air was fresh and the river was flowing steadily. Without delay, the men set to work. The forest echoed with the sound of iron meeting wood. It was a scene of honest labor and brotherhood. They were building something for the future, a place of learning and prayer. Elisha stood by the bank, watching the progress with a quiet peace. The sun filtered through the leaves, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. The moment of despair. But then, the rhythm was broken. One of the young men was swinging his axe with all his might against a thick trunk near the water's edge. Suddenly, there was a sharp, metallic crack. The heavy iron axe head flew off the wooden handle, spinning through the air before disappearing into the deep, murky depths of the Jordan River with a heavy splash. The young man froze. His hands, still gripping the empty wooden handle, began to tremble. This wasn't just a lost tool, it was a heavy burden. He turned to Elisha, his face pale with distress, and cried out from his heart, "Alas, my master, for it was borrowed." In that culture, losing a borrowed item was a matter of great debt and deep shame. The defiance of gravity. Elisha did not rebuke him for his carelessness. Instead, he stepped toward the water's edge, his presence calm and steady. "Where did it fall?" he asked. The young man pointed to the spot where the ripples were still fading. Elisha reached down and cut a small stick from a nearby branch. With a flick of his wrist, he threw the stick into the exact spot where the iron had vanished. Then, the laws of nature stood still. At the place where the stick hit the water, the heavy iron axe head began to rise. It did not just move, it floated to the surface like a piece of light wood, bobbing gently in the current. "Pick it up," Elisha said. The young man reached out his hand, his eyes wide with wonder, and grasped the cold iron. In that moment, he realized that the God of Israel cared for the smallest details of his life, even a borrowed axe head.